The world ended while I was buying socks. I remember the fluorescent lights flickering overhead, the stale scent of popcorn from the food court, and the distant hum of a cleaning machine. I had no idea that outside those glass doors, chaos was swallowing the city whole. But when the screaming started and the alarms blared, I realized I was trapped in a place built for comfort, now turned into a cage. If you're new here, do not forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. If you're enjoying it so far, it really helps the channel grow. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I would love to hear. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to be completely alone, surrounded by the dead with nowhere to run? That was my reality, and it all began with a single, echoing scream. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, suffocating silence that settles right before a storm. I was standing in the middle of the department store, clutching a pack of socks, when the world outside the glass doors erupted into chaos. A woman's scream cut through the air, sharp and desperate. I froze. The cashier, a bored-looking teenager, glanced up from her phone, her eyes wide. For a moment, we just stared at each other, both of us waiting for someone else to do something. Then the alarm started. That shrill mechanical wail that makes your heart race even when you know it is just a drill. But this was no drill. People began running past the entrance, their faces twisted in terror. Some were covered in blood. Others were dragging themselves, limping, clutching wounds that looked wrong. I dropped the socks. My hands were shaking. I remember thinking, this cannot be real. This cannot be happening here. But it was. The mall security gates slammed down with a metallic crash, sealing us inside. The lights flickered, then steadied. I could hear the pounding of fists against the glass doors, the muffled shouts, the guttural, animalistic growls that did not sound human. I ducked behind a display of winter coats, my breath coming in short, panicked bursts. The cashier was gone. I did not see where she went. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. The groans started then, low, guttural, echoing through the empty aisles. I peeked out from behind the coats and saw them, figures stumbling through the store, their movements jerky and unnatural. Their eyes were empty, their mouths smeared with blood. Zombies. Real, actual zombies. I pressed a hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. My mind raced. What do I do? Where do I go? The exits were blocked. The windows were shatterproof. I was trapped. I crawled along the floor, keeping low, trying to stay out of sight. The smell hit me then, a sickly sweet stench of rot and decay, mixed with the metallic tang of blood. It clung to the air, thick and suffocating. I made it to the back of the store, where the employee-only door stood slightly ajar. I slipped through, praying no one or nothing saw me. The hallway was dark, lit only by the red glow of an emergency exit sign. My footsteps echoed on the linoleum. I could hear the distant moans, the shuffling of feet, the occasional crash as something knocked over a display. I found a storage closet and ducked inside, closing the door as quietly as I could. I pressed my ear to the wood, listening. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. For a while I just sat there, knees pulled to my chest, trying to make sense of what was happening. I thought about my family, my friends. Were they safe? Were they even alive? I checked my phone. No signal, no messages. Just a single emergency alert. Shelter in place. Do not attempt to leave. Help is on the way, but help was not coming. Not tonight. I tried to calm myself, focusing on the sounds outside. The groans were getting closer. I could hear something dragging itself down the hallway, scraping against the walls. I held my breath. The doorknob rattled. I froze, every muscle tensed. The rattling stopped. Silence. Then a low, wet moan, right outside the door. I could see the shadow of feet beneath the crack. Dirty, blood-stained shoes. The thing stood there for what felt like hours, just breathing, sniffing, as if it could sense me. I did not move. I did not even blink. Finally, it shuffled away, its footsteps fading into the darkness. I let out a shaky breath, tears stinging my eyes. I was alive, for now, but I knew I could not stay in that closet forever. I needed food, water, a weapon, anything to defend myself. I waited until the sounds faded, then slowly opened the door. The hallway was empty, but the air was thick with fear. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound made me flinch. I crept down the hall, past the break room, past the manager's office. I found a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall and grabbed it, holding it like a lifeline. I made my way to the loading dock, hoping to find a way out. The big metal doors were locked tight, but I could see through the small window. Dozens of zombies milling around the parking lot, banging on the glass, their faces twisted in hunger. There was no escape. I backed away, heart pounding, and nearly tripped over a body. It was the security guard. His uniform was torn, his face pale and slack. I knelt beside him, searching for a pulse, but there was nothing. Just cold, lifeless skin. I took his flashlight and his radio, hoping they might be useful. The radio crackled with static, but no voices. Just the empty hiss of a world gone silent. I heard a noise behind me, a soft, shuffling sound. I spun around, fire extinguisher raised. A girl stood there, maybe 16, her eyes wide with terror. She held a kitchen knife in shaking hands. Are you alive?" she whispered. I nodded, too stunned to speak. She let out a sob of relief, lowering the knife. I thought I was the only one left. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay. But I could not, because I did not believe it myself. We stood there, two strangers in the dark, surrounded by death, and then, from somewhere deep in the mall, a new sound echoed, a loud crash, followed by a chorus of inhuman screams. Something had gotten inside. I looked at the girl, fear tightening my chest. "We need to move, now." But as we turned to run, the emergency lights flickered and died, plunging us into total darkness. And in that darkness, the dead began to hunt. Have you ever felt true darkness? The kind that presses in on you, thick and suffocating, where every sound could be your last? That was the darkness we faced as the emergency lights died and the mall became a tomb. The darkness was absolute. I could not see my own hand in front of my face. The girl, her name was Mia, I would learn later, clung to my arm, her breath quick and shallow. Somewhere in the blackness, something crashed to the floor. The groans grew louder, closer, echoing off the tile and glass. I fumbled for the flashlight I had taken from the security guard. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped it. When I finally managed to switch it on, the narrow beam cut through the dark, illuminating dust motes and the terrified face of Mia. "We have to get out of here," she whispered, her voice trembling. I nodded, trying to sound braver than I felt. "Stay close. Do not let go of me." We moved slowly, the flashlight our only guide. Every step was a risk. The beam danced over overturned chairs, scattered shopping bags, and streaks of blood smeared across the floor. The mall, once a place of laughter and life, was now a graveyard. We crept past the loading dock, the radio still crackling with static at my hip. I tried it again, pressing the button, whispering into the void. "Hello? Is anyone out there? We are trapped in the mall. Please, someone respond." Nothing. Just the hiss of emptiness. Mia squeezed my arm. "Do you think anyone will come?" I wanted to lie, to tell her help was on the way. But I could not. Not when the world outside was just as lost as we were. We reached the end of the hallway where a set of double doors led back into the main mall. I pressed my ear to the wood, listening. The groans were louder now, mixed with the sound of shuffling feet and the occasional sickening wet crunch. I swallowed hard. "We need supplies. Food, water, anything we can use. We cannot stay here." Mia nodded, wiping tears from her cheeks. "Okay, I will follow you." I pushed the doors open just a crack, peering through the gap. The main corridor was a nightmare, shadows moving between the storefronts. Broken glass glittering on the floor, mannequins toppled and twisted in grotesque poses. We slipped through, keeping low, the flashlight beam darting from shadow to shadow. I tried to remember the layout of the mall. The food court was on the second floor. If we could make it there, maybe we could barricade ourselves in. But first, we needed to get past the zombies. One of them lurched out of a shoe store, its head twisted at an unnatural angle, mouth hanging open in a silent scream. I froze, heart hammering in my chest. Mia whimpered, pressing herself against the wall. The zombie sniffed the air, its milky eyes searching. I held my breath, willing myself to be invisible. It shuffled closer, dragging 1 foot behind it. I gripped the fire extinguisher tighter, ready to swing if I had to. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the other end of the corridor. The zombie turned, distracted by the noise, and staggered away. I let out a shaky breath. "Come on, now!" We moved quickly, ducking into a clothing store. The smell of perfume and sweat hung in the air, mixed with the ever-present stench of decay. I scanned the shelves, grabbing a heavy coat for Mia and a sturdy pair of boots for myself. "Put these on," I whispered. "We do not know how long we will be here." She nodded, pulling the coat tight around her small frame. We found a backpack behind the counter and filled it with anything useful. Bottled water, energy bars, a pair of scissors, a roll of duct tape. Every item felt like a lifeline. As we moved to leave, I heard a faint sound, a soft, desperate whimper. I turned, shining the flashlight into the back room. A boy, maybe 10 years old, huddled behind a stack of boxes. His face was streaked with tears, his hands clutching a stuffed bear. "Please," he whispered, "do not let them get me." Mia rushed to his side, wrapping her arms around him. "It is okay. We are here. You're safe now." I knelt beside them, trying to keep my voice steady. "What is your name?" "Eli," he sniffled. "I was with my mom, but—" She did not make it. My heart twisted. I wanted to promise him everything would be all right, but the words caught in my throat. "We are going to stick together," I said instead. "We will find a safe place, but we have to move." "Can you walk?" He nodded, wiping his nose on his sleeve. We left the store, moving as quietly as we could. The mall felt even more dangerous now, every shadow hiding a threat. The groans were everywhere, echoing through the empty halls. We made our way toward the escalators, the flashlight beam trembling in my hand. The escalator was stopped, the metal steps slick with something dark and sticky. I tried not to look too closely. Halfway up, a zombie lunged at us from the upper floor, its arms outstretched, mouth snapping. I swung the fire extinguisher, the metal connecting with a sickening crunch. The zombie toppled backward, tumbling down the steps in a tangle of limbs. We scrambled to the top, hearts pounding, breath ragged. The food court was ahead, its neon signs flickering in the darkness. Tables were overturned, trays scattered, the smell of old grease and rot thick in the air. We barricaded ourselves inside a fast food restaurant, dragging tables and chairs against the doors. I checked the kitchen, empty for now. I found a few cans of soda, some bags of chips, and a first aid kit. We sat in the darkness, the only light coming from the flashlight. Eli clung to his bear, Mia stared at the floor, and I tried to keep my hands from shaking. Outside, the groans grew louder. The zombies were gathering, drawn by the noise, the scent of the living. I looked at Mia and Eli, two strangers who had become my responsibility. I wondered if I was strong enough to protect them. If I could keep us all alive, what would you do if you were in my place? Would you risk everything to save people you just met? Or would you run and save yourself? A sudden banging on the glass snapped me back to reality. Shadows pressed against the windows, hands smearing blood across the glass. We were not safe. Not even close. And then from the back of the kitchen, I heard a new sound, a voice hoarse and desperate, calling for help. Someone else was trapped inside with us. What would you do if you heard a voice in the darkness, when every sound could mean danger or hope? In that moment I had to decide, trust a stranger or risk everything to survive. The voice was faint, muffled by the thick kitchen door. For a second I thought I was imagining it, a trick of fear and exhaustion. But then I heard it again, clearer this time.
"Help, please, is anyone out there?"
Mia's eyes met mine, wide and uncertain. Eli clung to her side, his small hands trembling. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me to stay put, to keep the barricade between us and whatever was out there. But I could not ignore the desperation in that voice. Someone was alive. Someone needed help. I handed Mia the flashlight. "Keep it pointed at the door. If anything happens, run. Do not wait for me." She nodded, her jaw set with determination. I crept toward the kitchen, the fire extinguisher gripped tight in my hands. The door was dented as if something or someone had tried to break through. I pressed my ear against the cool metal. "Hello?" I whispered, barely loud enough to be heard. "Who is there?" A pause. Then, "My name is Mark. I am not one of them. Please, let me out. I am locked in the freezer." I glanced back at Mia and Eli. They were watching, silent and tense. I took a deep breath and pushed open the kitchen door. The smell hit me first, old grease, spoiled meat, and something else, sharp and metallic. The kitchen was a mess. Pots and pans scattered across the floor, a trail of bloody footprints leading to the walk-in freezer. I followed the trail, my heart pounding. The freezer door was closed, a heavy metal latch holding it shut. I could hear Mark's voice, muffled but urgent. "Please, hurry! They are coming." I fumbled with the latch, my hands slick with sweat. The door swung open and a man stumbled out, blinking in the dim light. He was older, maybe in his 40s, with a scruffy beard and wild eyes. His clothes were stained, his hands shaking. "Thank you," he gasped, collapsing against the wall. I thought I was done for. I helped him to his feet, keeping a wary eye on him. "Are you bitten? Are you hurt?" He shook his head, breathless. "No, I locked myself in when I heard them coming." "I have been in there for hours." I nodded, relief flooding through me. "Come on. We have to stay quiet." We slipped back into the dining area, closing the kitchen door behind us. Mia and Eli watched Mark with suspicion, but I could see the hope in their eyes. Another survivor meant another chance. We sat together in the darkness, sharing what little food we had. Mark told us his story in a low, shaky voice. He had been working in the kitchen when the outbreak started. He saw people turn right in front of him. One minute they were co-workers. The next they were monsters. "I barely made it to the freezer," he said, staring at his hands. I could hear them outside, scratching at the door. I thought I was going to freeze to death, or worse. Eli shivered, pulling his knees to his chest. "Are we going to die here?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to promise him that we would all make it out alive. But the truth was, I did not know. "We are going to try," I said softly. "We are going to fight." The banging on the glass grew louder, more urgent. Shadows pressed against the windows, their faces twisted in hunger. The barricade shook as the dead pounded on the doors, drawn by the sound of our voices. Mark looked at me, fear in his eyes. "We cannot stay here. They will break through eventually." He was right. The food court was a trap. Too many windows, too many ways in. We needed a better place to hide. I pulled out the mall map I had grabbed from the information desk earlier. My finger traced the layout, searching for options. "There is a sporting goods store on the first floor," I said. "If we can make it there, we might find weapons. Maybe even a way out." Mia nodded, determination hardening her features. "Let us go, before it is too late." We packed what little supplies we had, stuffing them into the backpack. I gave Eli the flashlight, telling him to stay close. Mark took a kitchen knife, his hands still shaking. We waited for a lull in the pounding, then slipped out the back door, moving through the darkened corridors. The mall was a maze of shadows and echoes. Every step felt like a gamble. We crept past the arcade, the flickering lights casting eerie patterns on the walls. The sound of distant groans followed us, never far behind. At the top of the escalator, we paused, listening. The lower level was crawling with zombies, their bodies swaying as they searched for prey. I scanned the area, searching for a path. There, a service hallway, half hidden behind a vending machine. If we could reach it, we might be able to slip past unnoticed. "Follow me," I whispered, leading the way. We moved quickly, hugging the walls, hearts pounding in our chests. The service hallway was narrow and dark, the air thick with the smell of mold and old cleaning supplies. Halfway down the hall, a zombie lurched out of a janitor's closet, its mouth open in a silent scream. Mark reacted first, stabbing it in the chest with the kitchen knife. The blade stuck, and the zombie kept coming. I swung the fire extinguisher, knocking the creature to the ground. Mark yanked the knife free, panting. "Keep moving," I hissed. We burst out of the hallway and into the main corridor. The sporting goods store was just ahead, its metal gate half closed. I ran to the gate, pulling it up just enough for us to crawl under. Mia went first, then Eli, then Mark. I slid under last, yanking the gate down behind me. Inside, the store was dark and silent. Racks of clothes and shelves of equipment loomed in the shadows. I found a baseball bat, gripping it tight. Mark grabbed a crowbar. Mia took a can of pepper spray from the counter. We barricaded the entrance with whatever we could find, display cases, boxes, anything heavy. For a moment, we just stood there, catching our breath. The world outside was chaos, but in that small, dark store, we had a sliver of hope. Eli looked up at me, his eyes wide. "What do we do now?" I glanced at the others, feeling the weight of their trust. "We survive," I said, "1 hour at a time." But as I spoke, a new sound echoed through the store, a faint, rhythmic tapping coming from the storage room in the back. We were not alone. I raised my bat, heart pounding. "Stay behind me," I whispered. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, and then, from the darkness, a voice whispered, "Help me." "If you had to risk everything for a stranger, would you do it?" In the darkness of that sporting goods store, with the undead pressing in, I had to make a choice that could mean life or death for all of us. The tapping from the storage room grew louder, each knock echoing through the silent store. I gripped the baseball bat so tightly my knuckles ached. Mia and Eli huddled behind a display of backpacks, their faces pale in the dim light. Mark stood beside me, crowbar raised, his breath coming in short, sharp bursts. "Who is there?" I called, my voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a voice, weak, trembling, but unmistakably human. "Please, I'm trapped. I am not infected. Please help me." I looked at Mark. He shook his head, eyes wary. "It could be a trick. We cannot risk it." But I could hear the desperation in the voice. I remembered what it felt like to be alone, terrified, begging for help. I could not leave someone behind, not if there was a chance. I moved slowly toward the storage room, every step measured and careful. The door was locked from the outside, a heavy metal bar holding it shut. I pressed my ear to the door, listening. "Are you alone?" I asked, a pause. Then, yes, I locked myself in when the screaming started. "I have not been bitten. Please, I am running out of air." I hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. If I opened the door and it was a trap, we could all die. But if I left them, I would never forgive myself. "What would you do? Would you risk your life for a stranger's voice in the dark?" I slid the bar free, heart pounding. The door creaked open, and a woman stumbled out, coughing, her face streaked with sweat and fear. She looked at me with wide, grateful eyes. "Thank you," she gasped, collapsing to her knees. I helped her up, checking her arms for bites. Nothing, just bruises and scratches. Mia brought her a bottle of water, and she drank greedily, tears streaming down her face. "My name is Sarah. I thought I was going to die in there." "You are safe now," I said, though I was not sure I believed it. We gathered in the center of the store, sharing what little food and water we had left. The barricade at the entrance rattled as the undead pressed against it, their groans growing louder with every passing minute. Sarah told us her story in a shaky voice. She had been shopping for camping gear when the outbreak started. She saw people turn right in front of her. She ran, locking herself in the storage room, listening as the world outside fell apart. "We cannot stay here," Mark said, his voice grim. "They will break through eventually." He was right. The barricade would not hold forever. We needed a plan. I pulled out the mall map again, tracing our options with trembling fingers. There was a maintenance tunnel behind the store leading to the loading docks. If we could reach it, we might be able to escape, but the way was dangerous. The undead were everywhere, drawn by the noise and the scent of the living. "We have to try," I said. "It is our only chance." We packed our supplies, arming ourselves with whatever we could find, bats, crowbars, even a crossbow from the hunting section. I gave Eli a whistle, telling him to blow it if we got separated. We waited for a lull in the pounding, then slipped out the back, moving through the shadows. The maintenance hallway was narrow and dark, the air thick with dust and fear. Every step was a gamble. Every sound made my heart race. We moved quickly, staying close together. The groans of the undead echoed behind us, growing fainter as we put distance between ourselves and the store. At the end of the hallway, we found the door to the loading docks. It was locked, a heavy chain wrapped around the handle. Mark swung the crowbar, breaking the chain with a loud, metallic snap. The noise echoed through the empty mall, and I knew it would draw the dead. We burst through the door, stumbling into the cold morning air. The parking lot was a wasteland, abandoned cars, shattered glass, bodies lying still in the dawn light. But the undead were there too. Dozens of them, wandering aimlessly, their heads snapping toward us as we emerged. "Run!" I shouted. We sprinted across the lot, dodging between cars, the undead closing in from all sides. I could hear Eli's whistle, shrill and desperate as he ran ahead. Mia clung to Sarah's hand, pulling her along. A zombie lunged at me, its fingers grazing my arm. I swung the bat, the impact jarring my bones. Mark was beside me, swinging his crowbar, clearing a path. We reached the edge of the lot, breathless and shaking. Beyond the mall, the city was in ruins, smoke rising from burning buildings, sirens wailing in the distance. But we were alive. For now. We huddled together behind an overturned truck, catching our breath. The undead milled around the mall, searching for us, but for the moment, we were safe. I looked at the others, Mia, Eli, Mark, Sarah. Strangers, brought together by fear and hope. "We made it," Mia whispered. Tears in her eyes, but I knew it was only the beginning. The world outside was just as dangerous as the mall. Maybe more. I looked at the rising sun, painting the sky with streaks of red and gold. A new day, a new fight. What would you do if you were in my place? Would you keep running? Would you try to find others? Or would you stand and fight even when hope seems lost? The groans of the undead echoed behind us, a reminder that the nightmare was far from over. But as long as we had each other, as long as we kept moving, there was a chance to survive, a chance to find hope in the darkness. And as the first rays of sunlight touched my face, I made a promise to myself and to the people beside me. I would not give up. Not now, not ever. Because in a world overrun by the dead, sometimes the only thing you have left is the will to keep going. And as we disappeared into the ruins of the city, I could not help but wonder, how many others were out there fighting to survive? How many stories like ours were unfolding in the shadows? Maybe, just maybe, we were not alone after all. Thank you for listening to my story. If you made it this far, do not forget to subscribe and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if you were trapped in a mall during the zombie outbreak? Would you risk everything for strangers or save yourself? I would love to hear your thoughts.